Hello, hello, hello. I want to formally go ahead and welcome you over to our stream today. We have so much exciting material to go ahead and go through. We have the future of the Ultimate Universe on deck here. We're also going to go ahead and explore some brand new X-Men developments in the lead up to the From the Ashes relaunch of the brand new X-Men line. Elsewhere, I think we had a pretty fantastic week over on the channel. We officially got back to uploading our regularly scheduled YouTube videos. I think I had an absolute blast this week, mainly focused on covering the latest developments over in Spider-Man's Gang War. I think that series has really been shuffling and moving the supporting cast around in some really interesting ways. It's been a blast to cover each and every issue of the Gang War crossover. Plus, I think that Zeb Wells and John Romita Jr. have injected such fantastic plotting over into the narrative that's just been a joy to read, like each and every single week that book is out. And lately, it feels like Marvel has been just publishing the hell out of each and every issue of Spider Man here, too. Let's see, elsewhere, we covered the latest issue of Birds of Prey. This one mixed things up a little bit because instead of having the usual art coming in over from the excellent Leonardo Romero, we were treated to the work from Aris Dane. And I actually fell in love with some of Aris Dane's designs. I think some of the ways that he was able to render the various Birds of Prey characters actually got a little bit more personality than we've seen out of some of what Leonardo Romero's designs lend. However, this is kind of a double-edged sword because Romero's art is just so beautiful and so wonderful and catches Kelly Thompson's tone so well. Either way, whether it's Aris Dane or whether it's Leonardo Romero, Birds of Prey, I think, is one of DC Comics' very best series. My name is Arakko Braddock. Welcome aboard to the stream today. We have so much exciting stuff to talk about and go over, but before we get into any of our news stories or our regular content, we need to address that last comic book that I reviewed this week. And let me tell you, it was a big one. And that was Fall of the House of X, issue 1. This kind of kicked off the dual miniseries that are closing out the Krakoan era of comic books. I thought the debut issue, written over from Jerry Duggan, featuring artwork from Lucas Werneck, was just so stunning. There were so many elements of Jerry Duggan's main X-Men comic book that were reintroduced through the guise of that comic book as well. So I think Fall of the House of X is so special. I think Lucas Werneck is so great at illustrating the X-Men. Werneck is a more animated artist, but he's still able to capture a lot of the subtext out of his figures and with the script itself. I think there is just so much technical aspects behind the end of Krakoa, and for me, it's kind of a shame to see that so many readers have kind of dropped off after Jonathan Hickman left, because I find that with this like incredibly long form storytelling, a lot of the best parts of it don't come until the very end as opposed to the beginning. Right now, we have just all these plot lines gliding through the air, whether it be the return of Moira or the lingering question of who the Dominion is, or just what's going on with Mother Righteous too towards the end of Immortal X-Men. Plus, it looks like Rise of the Powers of 10 coming out this Wednesday is actually going to hop into the future and show the remains of Orcus. We have a preview of that upcoming series, the second half of the book's closing out the Krakoa era. I am so excited to go ahead and dive into it, but that was just a quick recap of all the reviews that we had over on the channel this week. Right now, Marvel's publishing schedule is just beyond crazy. So still happy to come out with those reviews and hope you found the time to enjoy some of them. I know in the middle of this really like hectic and busy new year, Marvel is just releasing like hit after hit after hit in terms of the publishing line. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and catch my breath. I'm gonna go ahead and catch my breath a little bit, and then we're gonna go ahead and hop into our first news story. Actually, our first news story of the day is gonna be a little bit more focused over on the entertainment side of the industry, which we actually don't usually cover in a lot of depth here, but this one is so firmly related to the world of comic books that we absolutely have to go ahead and dive in. All right. Perfect. Let's go ahead and jump into it. This one is coming in over from Games Radar, Newsarama. And give me just one moment. We're going to go ahead and adjust the, let's see, the panel so you can see everything on the screen here. And perfect. I think we should be all set. All right, so we have a brand new update over from John Ridley, but not in the space of comic books. For anybody not in the know, John Ridley is just an incredibly talented creator who has worked both in the field of television or movies as well as comic books. John Ridley's comic book runs over on titles like Black Panther as well as I Am Batman has just been absolutely wonderful. And it looks like, according to Games Radar Newsarama, that it looks like John Ridley was actually writing a television series starring the Eternals characters. For me, this is really interesting because we recently got a Eternals run over from Kieran Gillen and Asad Ribic over in the space of comics leading up to Judgment Day that was just absolutely wonderful. I know for a fact that there's definitely a strong way to tell Eternal stories, but I don't think that the film actually was able to tap into the majesty of what that property had to offer. Okay, so this one is written over from Bradley Russell. Oscar-winning writer reveals he was working on a weird Eternals TV show. My version was the good version. I know John Ridley always has a strong personality. He's incredibly smart over as a writer and really thinks about long-term plotting, so I'm really interested to hear what his pitch over for an Eternals television series looked like. Let's go ahead and check this one out here. Oscar-winning writer John Ridley has revealed he was working on a weird Eternals show for Marvel years before the movie was released. Ridley, who won an Academy Award for Best Adapted Screenplay for his work on 12 Years a Slave, told the Comic Book Club podcast, "My version was the good version. It was so weird. There was my version, a good version, which is good to me. There was the version that Marvel ended up doing, which I don't think that version was particularly good, I'll be honest." Aside from throwing the slight shade at Eternals, Ridley also outlined the bizarre way his series would have begun. The first thing you see is a young man, probably about 18 years old, and he's sitting there, and then he lifts his hands, he has a drill in it, and he turns the drill on, and he puts the drill to his ears, and he starts pushing it in, Ridley explained. He added, however, that he isn't sure it would have been a surefire hit on ABC. The best thing to happen for everybody was that it didn't happen with me, because I don't know that it would have been entertaining, Ridley admitted. The Chloe Zhao directed 2021 MCU movie starring all these different actors here. Let's see here. Reviews for Eternals were largely mixed and audience reaction was lukewarm, with the Marvel Phase 4 project grossing $400 million at the box office. So I really think everything that Ridley is saying about his approach to the Eternals is incredibly cryptic, over with that scene description of a person with a drill. I know that John Ridley is great at using symbolism in terms of his stories. I honestly would love it if some kind of series bible or more information about what his Eternals pitch was going to be like went ahead and maybe leaked out or circulated among some of these news outlets. I think right now, the Eternals is actually a really interesting property over at Marvel. I think it has so much potential, and I would love to see Marvel really try and publish an ongoing or brand new Eternals series. I feel like one of the main reasons why this is so important right now is because the MCU is adapting all these really obscure characters. We're starting to resurface with characters like Blade, so I think really putting forth some strong source material in terms of Marvel's publishing line would really, really help the Eternals. Honestly, I would love to see maybe that John Ridley run adapted into the space of a comic book itself. So that was our glimpse over into the world of entertainment news, and just a quick update over on John Ridley. This next phase of our stream is really, really going to be focused on one thing and one thing alone, and that is the Ultimate Universe. Give me 1 second to catch my breath here, and then we're going to go ahead and dive into several related news stories to catch up on all things Ultimates. All right, let's go ahead and dive in. This one is coming in over from Adventures in Poor Taste, published just 2 days ago on January 4th. Exclusive Marvel preview Ultimate Spider Man Issue 1. The new Ultimate Spider Man for a new Ultimate Universe. I want to go ahead and give some context before we dive any deeper into this preview of the issue. So, frankly, I am really, really excited about Ultimate Spider Man, but I'm very trepidatious. I'm a little bit scared about learning a little bit more pertaining to this series. We've talked about this ad nauseum at this point, but in terms of all of Marvel's marketing for the series, I want to see what the actual plot is about. A lot of fans are really excited about two things pertaining to Ultimate Spider Man, and that is the really strong creative team of Jonathan Hickman writing alongside art from Marco Cicchetto, as well as the kind of resurfacing between the relationship with Peter Parker and Mary Jane. However, I don't think that combining all these ingredients together automatically gives readers a good story. I've been waiting to see what the plot direction or ideas behind Ultimate Spider Man Issue 1 actually looks like. So, we're going to go ahead and take a look at this preview today and see if we can get any closer behind what the actual plot direction in the brand new Ultimate Spider Man series looks like. This one coming in from David Brooke. Ultimate Spider Man is nearly upon us as the first issue launches next week. And today, Adventures in Poor Taste has the exclusive preview for the first issue. It's highly anticipated, in part as it's the first ongoing series to release for the Ultimate Universe line. Following it will be the Ultimate X-Men and Ultimate Black Panther, X-Men Krakoa era, mastermind Jonathan Hickman and superstar artist Marco Cicchetto also craft it. When we decided that we were going to do a book about an older Peter Parker becoming Spider-Man, we wanted to lean him starting into his superhero life from a very different place than what's traditionally expected. Hickman explained last year, Peter and Mary being married is one of the many decisions we made that underline this being quite a different kind of Spider-Man story. I mean, I just want to back up and say, in response to some of what Jonathan Hickman is saying, that just making, Peter Parker and Mary Jane in a relationship with each other, committed towards like a long-term story, I still don't quite see how you're going to craft a strong story around it. I think we talked about this last time we dove into Ultimate Spider-Man, but I think one book that's really utilizing aspects of family to just a fantastic degree is the current Flash series from Cy Spurrier and Mike Deodato. I love how that book just creates a kind of vortex of chaos over for Wally as he has to deal with supervillains in addition to acknowledging his children and wife there. Maybe if Ultimate Spider-Man really pushes on some of those elements and dives into big plot and is able to raise the stakes of Peter Parker having a family, I could see that working. But I'm still just not seeing anything about the plot really communicated in terms of any of Marvel's marketing material. Okay, so this issue written over from Hickman, featuring art from Cicchetto. We have colors from Matthew Wilson, letters from VC's Corey Petit, and the cover is coming in over from Cicchetto and Wilson as well. So Ultimate Spider-Man issue 1 is just a couple days away here. It looks like this series is actually set to launch January 10th. I also think this is just a really beautiful cover, just really excellently designed here. The bleed coming out from Spider-Man's webs is amazing. And I also think that the logo and placement for the new Ultimate line just looks fantastic. And we also just have a beautiful sense of design over on the credits page here. I want to give credit where credit is due here. It looks like the design for Ultimate Spider-Man is handled by Jay Bowen. Okay, we can go ahead and preview our first page of Ultimate Spider-Man issue 1 here. It looks like this series is really kind of cutting up some of Peter Parker's time. We can see him acknowledging himself in the mirror over in the month of January. We have just really gorgeous panel backgrounds and a really detailed page over from Cicchetto. I feel like there is so much like detail in the individual strands over in Peter Parker's hair. There's also just a really cool sensibility to so many of Marco Cicchetto's figures that I think you can really see communicated over on the page here. There's something about the disheveled look over in Peter Parker's hair and his beard, and there's something about, the shirt that he's wearing that just looks a little bit trendy, even though it's just so basic and streamlined. Looks like Peter Parker has a wedding ring acknowledging his relationship over with Mary Jane. Once again, I mean, just incredibly detailed pages. There's a really big focus on like architecture and page design from Chiquetto that's really gorgeous here. My only real critique is that I just wish Chiquetto was taking on a project that, had a different genre, because it seems like he's been firmly entrenched within the like superhero noir genre, whether it be like Daredevil or Punisher or some other comics like that for a really long time here. Maybe if this run of Ultimate Spider-Man has like a big science fiction backdrop like I hope it does, there'll be a little bit more intrigue in terms of that here. This is really just a more domestic setting where like Peter Parker is making some coffee over for Mary Jane and the kids. Frankly, I don't think there's any, big plot details or revelations here, but there is just once again here some really nice art over from Chiquetto. I think this panel in the upper left, kind of serving as the background of the page here, is really really beautiful. Just great designs. Also, I think the black panel borders give a little bit more like ambiance, a little bit more subtext over in the issue too. This is our last page, and I'm really just struck at how little plot details or plot information we have on the page. I mean, maybe this gizmo, maybe this gadget will resurface a little bit later in terms of the issue, but this really does feel like a very kind of bare bones first couple pages introducing Peter Parker and his family dynamic here. So I am still waiting, even after we went through this entire preview, to see what the big revelation is, what kind of Spider-Man science fiction concept Hickman and Chiquetto were taking on. Thankfully, though, it seems like we're just a couple days away from seeing what they have in store for the upcoming Ultimate Spider-Man launch. Hopefully next weekend I'll come on stream here and I'll be like, oh my goodness, this issue blew me away. They pulled a rabbit out of a hat here. They took some really interesting science fiction concept. They inverted it on a scale that's similar to the Krakoa era. I really hope this one blows me away, but I'm a little bit trepidatious, especially after seeing some of these first pages over within the issue. And also, it would be a little bit weird if this particular issue is bad too, because I think everything so far in the Ultimate line has just been fantastic. Ultimate Invasion was absolutely wonderful. I think that Ultimate Universe issue was really, really cool. Also, those first couple pages of Ultimate X-Men were just wonderful. I am so excited to go ahead and check that book out. And frankly, we're not even done having fun with the Ultimate Universe. We have a brand new news story to go ahead and jump into, but first, we're going to go ahead and say hi over to Afro SF. Thank you so much for coming to check out our stream today. Afro SF says, greetings, Arakko Braddock. Can't wait for Ultimate Spider-Man. Yeah, let's see how that one goes. Let's see, once again, if they're going to pull a rabbit out of the hat and show us that big, brand new science fiction, plot thread that I'm really looking for. Okay, let's go ahead and continue our fun over in the Ultimate Universe with a news article published yesterday that I actually missed up until this morning. One of the biggest plot threads at the end of the Ultimate Invasion series, which kind of kicked off the new Ultimate Universe, was the formation of a brand new team of Ultimates characters. There were so many interesting supporting characters teased mainly towards the end of the Ultimate Invasion series that have started to resurface in the Ultimate Universe one-shot, and it looks like our team of brand new but familiar Marvel heroes are coming together in a brand new Ultimate series, and this one is really interesting because it's written over from Dennis Camp. This one coming in over from David Brooke on adventuresinpoortastecomics.com. It looks like we have new information concerning the Ultimate Universe, thanks to Dennis Camp and a Marvel Comics press release. Marvel released new interior art and solicitation info for their free comic book day books, one of which is a Spider-Man Ultimate Universe combo. The solicit reads, Now, a new team of ultimate heroes emerge to help this twisted universe on track towards a hopeful future in a new story by Dennis Camp and Juan Frigeri. Camp confirmed via Twitter that this is an ongoing he'll be writing. Let's see. Camp confirmed he'll be writing an Ultimates team book, The Avengers of this universe. Juan Frigeri has proven time and time again that he's great at team books, like his work on Avengers with Jason Aaron and Invincible Iron Man with Jerry Duggan. Check out Camp's tweet below. Okay, so here is Dennis Camp, the writer of the upcoming Ultimates book himself, reacting to this news story. Oh, I just noticed that the solicit kind of has an announcement in it, so I guess I can confirm I'm writing an ongoing Ultimate series. Pretty neat. Alongside this issue is a preview from the free comic book day book. Check out that below. All right, we have so much to talk about here in terms of these brand new news announcements. Frankly, I think there is a lot to be excited about. Dennis Camp did phenomenal work over on the Children of the Vault series. There's such an interesting sense of camaraderie between Bishop and Cable in that comic book, and I'm very interested to see if Camp is going to be able to craft some of those team dynamics in terms of these new Ultimate characters. Individuals like Iron Lad and the new version of Reed are very harrowing, and I think could lend some very interesting, tidbits of conversation as well. I have really grown to appreciate and really come to love Juan Frigeri's artwork on the core Invincible Iron Man series. I feel like there's just so much potential in terms of him crafting a team dynamic. I'm very, very excited to see what this new Ultimate Universe series looks like. This is a really great preview page. We have Iron Lad, Captain America, as well as Reed fighting on a page just full of like big action set pieces that just show off, I think, how accurate I think some of Frigeri's artwork can be. Given what we know about this super team, it appears to be made up of Iron Lad, Doctor Doom, and Captain America. Chances are it also features Thor and Lady Sif. Yeah, the Ultimate Universe book that introduced Thor and Lady Sif over to the narrative, I think did just a good job in terms of the pacing with introducing more characters and just really opening up more plot threads to allow for an Ultimate Comics universe book like this to exist over in the first place here. All right, so I think, frankly, there's a lot to be excited about in terms of the upcoming Ultimates books over at Marvel. Also, I think it's good that Jonathan Hickman isn't writing each and every series in terms of what that line is going to look like in the near future. But we're not even done exploring the Ultimate side at Marvel Comics. Let's go ahead and touch on a news story about a different title in the Ultimate line that I missed a couple weeks ago. Let's go ahead and explore Ultimate Black Panther issue 1 here. This one is coming in from the excellent creative team of Brian Hill and Stefano Caselli. And it looks like this series is also coming out just in a couple weeks here over on February 7th. Wakanda bangs the drums of war in the Ultimate Black Panther issue 1 trailer. Spinning out of Jonathan Hickman and Brian Hitch's Ultimate Invasion, it's the dawn of a new Ultimate Universe. With it comes an all-new Ultimate Black Panther series from the creative minds of Brian Hill and Stefano Caselli. Of course, I think X-Men Red was one of my favorite books of last year, so seeing Stefano Caselli resurface on a title related to the Ultimate Comics line has me more than excited. This one also has just a really fascinating premise, blending elements of Moon Knight and Black Panther together. Let's go ahead and explore a little bit more here. Hitting stands in February, this bold new take on Black Panther sees the legendary nation of Wakanda still isolated and kept secret from the world at large. When Khonshu and Ra, the forces known together as Moon Knight, seek to expand their brutal control of the continent of Africa, Black Panther is forced to take his people out of the shadows for the first time. In addition to T'Challa, readers will also meet new Ultimate versions of Okoye, Shuri, Killmonger, Storm, and more in this rousing saga of duty, sacrifice, and love. Fans can get the first glimpse at the cast bracing themselves for war in the all-new Ultimate Black Panther trailer featuring never-before-seen artwork. Afro SF says Children of the Vault is the only Krakoa Aaron book I bought not written by Hickman. I am happy Dennis Camp writes with a science fiction sensibility. His work will complement Hickman's. Man, what a fantastically worded comment there. And yeah, I think there was some science fiction stuff now that I think about it in terms of Children of the Vault 2, especially in terms of like aspects like the city. Yeah, I think you're totally right here. I'm excited to see what Dennis Camp has in store for those Ultimates characters. I think too, because those characters are so like new to continuity, even though a lot of them are riffs on existing characters, I'm really fond of them because I was able to kind of watch them develop through the course of the Ultimate Invasion series as well as Ultimate Universe. And I always have like a soft spot when I'm able to see superhero teams come together for the first time over on the page too. Yeah, there's a lot to be excited about in terms of what Dennis Camp and Juan Ferreri are bringing to the book. Also, like I know we've talked about this already, but I have just been over the moon with the artwork in terms of Iron Man. I was just really shocked to see that Juan Ferreri was like operating at a level comparable to Jerry Duggan's. I had low expectations for Invincible Iron Man as a comic book series, and I feel like each and every month it just exceeds them again and again and again. I feel like there's so much that Ferreri is going to be able to accomplish on a brand new Ultimates book, and I hope he's like one of the best and like hottest new artists in terms of Marvel over the next coming years. I was invigorated by this opportunity because, in addition to my immense respect for Jonathan Hickman's detailed storytelling, the idea of shepherding a bold new take on Black Panther in this event gives me a platform to do the kind of broad, epic storytelling I've always wanted to do in comics, Hill said. You know what, frankly, I'm so happy to hear Brian Hill say that. I think, in terms of all these Marvel Universe Ultimate Comics so far, there's definitely been a focus in terms of long term storytelling. And I just don't want to see comic book writers working on a shared universe be really disconnected, especially with how small the Ultimate line is. There's just a couple ongoing series like the Ultimates, Black Panther, as well as Ultimate X Men in the very near future here. Let's see where we left off. Oh, yeah, we have a reference over to the Maker. One of the things that's got me really interested in checking out Ultimate Black Panther is the fact that it looks like this is the book where the Maker is going to be resurfacing next. So it feels like this one is also going to be really important to Marvel's overall line of comics. My influences range from the history of Black Panther comics to Ryan Coogler's incredible work within the recent films to Frank Herbert's world-building capacity of Dune. This is something people won't expect, and the best of ways, in full credit to Marvel and editors Will Moss and Michelle Marchese for bringing this creative possibility to me. Following next month's Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate Black Panther will be the second launch in Marvel's new Ultimate line. The saga began with the Maker, one of the last survivors of the old Ultimate Universe, traveling back in time on a parallel Earth to create a world without heroes. He succeeded and ruled this world in secret through various global factions. Yeah, the meta nature in which the new Ultimate Universe spawned out of Ultimate Invasion has me just so excited about the potential and ambition of what this line has in store. Now he's vanished, and a quiet war has broken out across the planet to shape what will happen to his kingdom. Some want to control the world, some want to free it. After discovering the dark truths, a young Tony Stark embarks on a bold mission to make things right. Meanwhile, Wakanda stirs, pressured from internal and external forces to take its rightful place on the global stage. I think it's going to be really cool too to see Wakanda like reimagined over in terms of the Ultimate Universe for what Brian Hill has in store for this book. Filled with modern takes on classic Marvel ideas and characters, the new Ultimate Universe is ripe for rich storytelling and a perfect evolution of the Ultimate brand. See it grow and develop in upcoming issues of Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate Black Panther, and March's Ultimate X-Men, along with the more Ultimate titles launching in the months ahead. Man, I have to say here, out of all the Ultimate books announced, I think I'm still the most excited for Ultimate X-Men. Actually, it feels like Ultimate X-Men is still slated to be one of the most ambitious Marvel comics in terms of the Ultimates line. They have that character of Maystorm as well as a reimagined version of Armor. So it seems like they're taking on some new characters just in general, which is going to be really interesting. Also, I just think Peach Momoko's art looks like, few other comics in terms of what's being published over in the industry as well. I love Stefano Caselli's cover for this first issue of Ultimate Black Panther. I think what really makes it for me is the really cool bleed stemming from T'Challa's hand just right over the logo in trade dress here. Yeah, and I think what we really wanted to look at was the cover for the second issue, teasing the Maker in the background, as well as it looks like some of the aspects of Khonshu and Ra. Once again, I can just feel, some of the ambition stemming from this cover too. The last thing I would have expected for the second issue of Ultimate Black Panther was for the Maker to resurface too, who's like the, biggest villain, I would say, in terms of the greater Ultimate universe. Grayson Red says, I'm just praying Ultimate X-Men will be monthly. Me too, me too. Let me think. Ultimate X-Men is over from Peach Momoko. Yeah, I wonder if that series is going to need to rotate out, different artists, or how they're going to be able to keep up with a consistent schedule, right? It seems like the quality of Peach Momoko's work is just so incredibly high. Publishing that each and every month is like just an incredibly difficult task. Man, what a beautiful cover on Ultimate Black Panther 2. This one is slated to go on sale March 13th. Let's see. I'm going to just check real quick to see if we have any like additional interior art that we haven't looked at yet. Oh, we do. Okay, give me a moment and I'll get this on the screen. Let's see. Okay, I think this is going to work. It looks like we actually have some really cool designs and some more artwork. Let's go ahead and check this out right now. This is coming in over from Stefano Caselli. Oh man, we lost it. Here, give me one moment and we'll get it back up on the screen. Let's see here. Okay. Yeah, I think we're just going to have to make do with that for now. But yeah, I think we have just wonderful design from Caselli over in terms of the Ultimate Black Panther outfit. It looks like it's just a little bit different, but the differences are noticeable in terms of T'Challa's outfit here. It does seem pretty complicated. I'm noticing there's a lot of individual lines over on the helmet, as well as like really big spikes just kind of surrounding his entire costume here. It does look really deadly, really violent, and I'm curious to see if it's going to reflect, this T'Challa's personality. If he's going to be a little bit darker or more prone to violence than what we see over with the core Black Panther character. Okay, wow. Take a look over at this cover coming in from Karen Darbo. There is so much personality stemming from this ultimate version of T'Challa. And just some of the Panthers over in the background, too, are gorgeous. This sense of design and the way that this, like, green serves as negative space for the cover is beautiful. This is just a really, really amazing cover over from Darbo. I absolutely love checking out Darbo's work as well. This is a really cool cover that also shows off some of the ways the spikes over on T'Challa's costume can look really violent and interesting in terms of the page here. Let's see who this one was illustrated by. Okay, I'm also a pretty big fan of Travel Foreman. I really like the way that Travel Foreman has this like really like nimble sense of line that captures a lot of personality over in terms of his figures. Really cool stuff. This one is fantastic too. I feel like this one is a little bit more like patchy and shady than we've seen in terms of these other Black Panther covers. This one illustrated by Ethan Young. I'm not familiar with Ethan Young, but this is a beautiful cover. I love the outline on T'Challa and the red background too. I think that looks really nice juxtaposed together. And we've already checked out the incredibly epic Stefano Caselli illustrated cover over on Ultimate Black Panther 2. I am incredibly interested to check this one out and to see where the Ultimate Universe is headed next. And correct me if I'm wrong, but no, I think we have even more really exciting Ultimate Universe stuff to go ahead and dive into. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and touch on this really briefly here, but we actually even have the cover for Ultimate Black Panther issue 3. This one reintroduces Storm and the character of Killmonger, but in a much, much different context. Let's go ahead and explore a little bit more about it over on Marvel.com. This February, enter the Wakanda of the new Ultimate Universe in writer Brian Hill and Stefano Caselli's Ultimate Black Panther 1. The hotly anticipated new series will introduce characters to an all new T'Challa and Black Panther. Okay, let's scroll down here and figure out what is going on over with Killmonger and Storm. In Ultimate Black Panther 3, Black Panther takes matters into his own hands and embarks on a covert solo mission to deal with Ra and Khonshu directly. Wakanda's conflict with Moon Knight has escalated, even with spies all across the continent feeding information. Wakanda is overwhelmed, everything changes when a pair of freedom fighters enter the fray, Ultimate Killmonger and Ultimate Storm. You know what? This is something that I was looking for, and that is that Wakanda is directly in battle over with Moon Knight. Very interesting stuff. Let's see how Killmonger and Storm get in the middle of Wakanda's battle over with Khonshu and Moon Knight. I've always loved looking at outfits of tribes from all over the world, Momoko explained. So, if you're wondering why Peach Momoko is actually quoted over in this article, it's because she actually designed some of the outfits for the new Killmonger and Storm. Combining the modern and tribal, the beauty and strong is something I always love thinking about, and getting to design Storm and Killmonger, I wanted to respect the characters and also put in my soul and unique vision into them. Following next month's Ultimate Spider Man, Ultimate Black Panther will be the second launch in Marvel's new Ultimate line that was born out of Jonathan Hickman and Brian Hitch's Ultimate Invasion series. Okay, so let's go ahead and check out some of the Peach Momoko design material. Give me one moment here and I'll kind of fiddle with Marvel's site and get some of those design documents up on the screen. It's really interesting comparing Stefano Caselli drawing these characters versus Peach Momoko as well. Let's see if we can get this up on the screen here. Okay, and this is Marvel's document over for Peach Momoko's Storm design that they have. Yeah, I think this one is just really striking here. There's a lot going on. Storm has some really, really long hair. Also, in the foreground, her design, her costume is really complicated too, with just so many layers, and also this like scarf or collar towards her neck as well that's incredibly colorful. Her shoes are incredibly detailed too, with these kind of like socks that are like bunched up as well. Also, just look at how many layers are involved in terms of that jacket, too. It feels like when kind of like Western creators redesign a lot of superhero characters, they just try and put as many lines in the costume as possible. So I think it's really interesting to see how Peach Momoko approaches the design changes over to some of the characters, too. Yeah, this one is also like really, really detailed. Take a look at all of the individual lines in terms of Killmonger, but I still think it just looks quite staggering here. I like how kind of visually diverse it is. Like we get the sense that this Killmonger character is a little bit maybe like darker in terms of his personality because of like the lower half of his torso, just kind of being coated in black with the top of it having just like this rainbow design. Also think it's interesting that he's using this axe here. Totally agree with you, Grayson Red. I think we have some amazing designs over for Peach Momoko. I think it's very exciting that Marvel is allowing Momoko to design some of these characters because I think she just brings a different like visual element than what you're going to see with a lot of other Marvel creators. Afro SF Peach Momoko designs. Peach Momoko is wonderful. Such great designs. I loved her Miracle Man short story. Yes, it was great. I always forget about that one, but I remember recently going back and checking out that Peach Momoko story over in Miracle Man, and it was just quite beautiful as well. So that is going to wrap up our Black Panther coverage of the day here. I'm a lot more excited about the Black Panther ongoing than I ever thought I would be. Okay, let's go ahead and dive into some of our X Men coverage and take a look at the broader Marvel universe as well. Recently, Marvel announced even more details in terms of their free comic book day announcements. We're going to cover items like the X Men's Krakoan Age kind of winding down. We're going to look at what the new X Men series is going to look like. And we're also going to preview the opening kill of Marvel's upcoming Blood Hunt story, which melds the Avengers and some of their concepts over with vampires in the Marvel Universe. Let's go ahead and check out this article coming in over from Marvel.com. On May 4th, celebrate Free Comic Book Day at your local comic book shop by taking thrilling first steps into Marvel's most anticipated title launches, storylines, and the next monumental crossover, Blood Hunt. It's one of the biggest days for the comic book industry, and this year, Marvel has whipped up something for every comic book fan, plus exciting entry points for newcomers across a record 5 free comic book day titles. Okay, so I just want to say, just from a glance here, I'm not that invested in each and every event that Marvel Comics has. Sadly, I am just not quite seeing how some of the plot direction is going to come together from Blood Hunt. Also, I just feel like I have been so disappointed with Jed McKay and Fia's Avengers run as it currently stands and how slow the plotting in terms of that book is going to move. I'm definitely going to go ahead and keep an eye to see how Blood Hunt is going to develop. And maybe, that Avengers series is going to switch gears and like introduce more like vampire concepts. But until I see some plot threads that are really going to make me interested in Blood Hunt, I think I'm going to approach it with more of like a skeptical eye moving forward. However, for me, I would say that this is just an absolutely, must buy or must grab issue in terms of free comic book day because it features the future of the X-Men. And the creative team on this one is really interesting here. We have Jed McKay and Gail Simone writing the Free Comic Book Day 2024 Blood Hunt X-Men with art from Sarah Pichelli and David Marquez. We have a cover from Cale New. So it looks like maybe Gail Simone and David Marquez could potentially be a creative team on Marvel's upcoming X-Men property for the X-Men from the Ashes storyline. I'm actually really excited about that team. I think we've already talked about this, but Gail Simone's Secret Six comic was just so beautiful and has actually stayed with me after all this time. I think the subsequent relaunches of Secret Six have been wonderful. I think if you take like that quirky team dynamic and apply it to some of the really interesting X-Men characters, you could definitely get a really great series. I feel like the current Secret Six book is a little bit closer over to books like Hellions or like Dark X-Men. So I wonder if Gail Simone is going to be able to craft a narrative with Marvel's core X-Men who aren't hyper dark or hyper quirky that could still get me interested in checking out the content. I feel like there's so much potential in what Simone and Marquez could lend over to the X-Men. I'm over the moon about this. David Marquez has actually drawn the X-Men before. I actually have a box up behind some of the crap behind me that actually has him drawing a group of X-Men that was just right before the Krakoa era kicked off in earnest. Oh, okay. We actually have a little bit more plot direction about the From the Ashes story. Let's go ahead and check this out. Free Comic Book Day 2024 Bloodhunt X-Men will give readers their very first look at what's next for mutant kind. Written by Gail Simone and drawn by David Marquez, this story follows Jubilee on a journey to where it all began and is packed with jaw-dropping hints at the X-Men's post-Krakoa landscape. Very cool, very cool. It looks like Jubilee is going to be like our point of view character to navigate the future of what the X-Men universe could look like. I remember a couple years ago, when the Hellfire Gala kicked off around Free Comic Book Day, and we got all the revelations towards like stories like Judgment Day. Frankly, I hope this Free Comic Book Day is just as exciting. I could not be more hyped about checking out this X-Men from the Ashes story. Marvel has assembled just an absolutely just killer creative team on this book. I'm really hoping for just a quirky story packed with small revelations for the X-Men that'll have me really fascinated and checking out what's next. Man, I am just so shocked that we're already about to head into the X-Men post Krakoa reboot, but frankly, I feel like it's the best thing for the franchise right now. I feel like it's probably a good idea to take on a new set of ideas, of philosophies, and headed into the next era. So really excited about this. We'll have to see how that one shakes out here. I'm also really pumped to check out the Spider-Man in the Ultimate Universe #1 comic book. Frankly, this one is more of like a double hitter for me. I love the current Spider-Man series. I love, the current Ultimates book as well. Let's see. MTLNS says, agree with Afro SF. Children of the Vault was, we got one of those spice emojis. Absolutely agree. I think that book was fantastic. I actually never finished it. I'm going to have to go back and check out, I think, the last two issues that I missed out on. So this Free Comic Book Day issue is written by Zeb Wells and Dennis Camp. We have art from Ryan Stegman and Juan Figueri, and a cover from Ryan Stegman. In Free Comic Book Day 2024, Spider-Man The Ultimate Universe 1 see the start of the next ongoing series set in Marvel's new Ultimate line. By the time it comes out, readers will have met the new Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate Black Panther, and Ultimate X-Men. Now a team of Ultimate heroes emerge to help put this twisted universe on track towards a hopeful future, and a story by Dennis Camp and Juan Figueri. I'm starting to remember how Ultimate Universe ended over with Iron Lad being put in a really precarious situation there. Okay, so we also have the second half of this series setting up the future of not only Spider-Man, but it looks like Venom too. I didn't know that Marvel was also going to bring out some Venom pages over in this Free Comic Book Day issue. So Spider-Man The Ultimate Universe 1 will set up the return of Norman Osborn as Green Goblin, a storyline coming soon to Zeb Wells' Amazing Spider-Man run, and a special preview of Al Ewing's next mind-bending arc of Venom. All right, I haven't seen this. Oh boy, do we have a lot to comment on. Yeah, I didn't know they were doing this or that this was the direction for the future of the Spider-Man franchise. So for those not in the know, over the past couple issues of Amazing Spider-Man, there's been so many arcs dedicated to reforming Norman Osborn as the Green Goblin, and recently we had a tease that Norman might be straying back over to his villainous side. Frankly, I think that this threatens to derail like nearly all of the narrative momentum that Zeb Wells has established throughout his entire run. It feels like so much of what he was doing on Spider-Man has really been focused on reforming Norman Osborn. Making that threat in terms of the Free Comic Book Day issue is a ton of fun, and just a great way that I think Zeb Wells once again is going to play some psychological mind games over in terms of readers. I'm wondering how close he's going to get, if he's going to tease, a reformation over for Norman. I feel like there's more to this than we know about currently. But I really hope there is. I really hope that there's some really interesting way that they're going to be able to tie Norman Osborn coming back into Green Goblin, maybe like as a heroic turn or just something that could be potentially interesting in terms of that book. Man, I think Free Comic Book Day this year is going to be really, really exciting in terms of like all the ideas and stories that it's setting up over for Marvel in the next year. Okay, this book actually looks really interesting to me too. There's a lot of really cool characters they're taking on from Nico, America Chavez, Miles Morales. We have Moon Girl. So this is Free Comic Book Day 2024. Marvel's Voice is number one, written by Nikesh Shukla and more, featuring art by Tadam Yadu and more, with a cover by Anand Ramcharan. Yeah, really beautiful cover, just utilizing the negative space and like the webbing over from the Spider-Man characters extremely well. Free Comic Book Day 2024, Star Wars Darth Vader number one. Marvel is still going strong with their Star Wars line, which I don't think I have enough time in the day to check out any of these titles here. This one has a really great creative team, featuring writing from Charles Soule and Greg Pak, penciled by Ibrahim Robertson and Ramon Rosadas, featuring art from Phil Noto. The one thing that I keep saying in terms of just Marvel's like Star Wars line in general right now is I just really don't understand why they're publishing stories with like the original generation Star Wars characters, because I would think they would want to take on new characters to create new ideas for the movies, like in terms of how Marvel's publishing line serves as a way for the publisher to like hatch new ideas for like MCU films and television shows. MTLNS says, I hope the new X-Men relaunch has Tom Muller involved in the design system. That is a great call out. That is a great call out. I love Tom Muller. Just such beautiful design and artwork. Really hoping, just like you said here, that we're also going to get treated to just some excellent Tom Muller work. Give me one moment here. We're going to bring up some of these preview pages and fight with Marvel.com's just bizarre website. Yeah, the one thing we can't miss is even though I'm not super excited about Blood Hunt, there was a page from Sarah Pichelli that looked so beautiful. When I was looking through some of Sarah Pichelli's art this morning, I realized that even though her figures are so nimble, they still have personality. Okay, looks like we finally got this up on the screen here. Okay, this was that page from Sarah Pichelli that I was talking about just a moment ago. It's really just a page of Spider-Man looking at this character in terms of this Free Comic Book Day Blood Hunt story, but there's just something about the way that Spider-Man is standing, the shading in terms of his costume, like the way that like not each and every piece of his finger is designed, that I think just oozes this fantastic sense of personality. Not only that, but Pichelli captures this like really big panel with the smaller one focused in on Spider-Man with his arm like adjusted over his head and his two little fingers kind of bleeding off the panel as well as his head. Not only that, but we have yet another bleed with Spider-Man towards the bottom of the page here. I think Sarah Pichelli is one of my absolute, probably top five favorite artists at Marvel, and this sense of like design and personality on each and every page, definitely would be why here. Yeah, we have a Ryan. This is Ryan Stegman cover, isn't it? It looks like it is over for the upcoming. What was this? The Ultimates and Spider-Man book 2. This was the preview page over on Ultimate Universe, or the brand new Ultimates comic coming in from Dennis Camp and Juan Figueroa. Really exciting stuff. Let's see what this is. Is this a page? Okay, looks like this is interior artwork from Ryan Stegman in terms of the Zeb Wells story on Amazing Spider-Man. I'm not the biggest fan of some of Ryan Stegman's artwork. I really don't like some of the anatomy designs that he's able to render. It's just not in my personal taste here. But overall, really good page design. There's still some really solid bleeds and a lot of personality from Stegman's art too. It also looks like there's like a really crazy, a really quirky scenario for Spider-Man, which you can always expect with Zeb Wells, with these characters having like trails, like leaving their eyes, looking like almost demented Chuck E. Cheese heroes. I'm almost wondering if Limbo is going to be involved over in this story. Let's see if we have a preview page on this Marvel Voices story. I'd like to check that one out. Okay, we have interior artwork from Tadam Gyadu. This is just really, really stunning here. We have like the opposite of a bleed towards the bottom of the page with this panel kind of like interrupting the shoe. And also the way this character is calling out of a megaphone is just a great way to kind of introduce and foreshadow turning the next page in the series too. Really cool stuff here. Yeah, fantastic Phil Noto cover on this free Comic Book Day Star Wars issue too. Looks like we got some Salvador LaRocca art. No, excuse me. This one is coming in from Ramon Rosanas on the Star Wars story. A lot of detail, a lot of personality from Darth Vader. Great bleeds and cool designs on this page too. Let's see, is this also a Ramon Rosanas page? This one is coming in from Ibrahim Robertson. This one, really amazing. The symmetry in the design, the negative space in the background, the interesting, like, cold designs for these characters, really cool stuff. Okay, so that was our brief look into the future of Marvel's free comic book day. As mentioned, it looks like we got some big titles in store between a peek into the new Ultimate Universe and a glimpse in terms of the X-Men property too. I promised you earlier that we were going to have a massive X-Men spotlight, and I am indeed going to make good on my promise. We're going to go ahead and preview our next X-Men story, which also looks to be a big one. So it looks like Wolverine will mark the return of fan-favorite artist Greg Capullo to Marvel Interiors after decades away. Once again, we're coming in really timely with this news article published 2 days ago from George Marston over on Newsarama. Legendary comic book artist Greg Capullo is coming to one of Marvel's biggest characters in general, and that would be Wolverine. Fan favorite artist Greg Capullo has been back doing covers at Marvel Comics. After spending a few decades away making a name for himself on Image's Spawn and DC's Batman. And now he's finally taking on some interiors as the new artist of an upcoming Marvel title. That comic, while not yet officially named, is almost certainly the upcoming Wolverine solo title that will be part of summer 2024's relaunch of the X-Men line. How do we know? Because Capullo himself may have accidentally spilled the beans by posting a poorly cropped version of the otherwise innocuous page of the first new Wolverine 1 on social media before deleting it and replacing it with a new crop of the page which doesn't show Wolverine written in pencil in the top left corner. It looks like Adventures in Poor Taste preserved the original post and the uncropped image. Man, shout out to the goats at Adventures in Poor Taste, just doing awesome stuff. It looks like we have a preview of this. Let's see if we can get this on the screen any bigger. Okay, I think this page of Wolverine is really showing me why Greg Capullo is so celebrated in terms of just the comic book industry at large. The amount of shading, the amount of detail on like each and every panel is really staggering. There is just so much attention to the design and architecture of each of these individual panels. Really, really beautiful stuff. I also like how Greg Capullo is able to render facial expressions with some personality in like each and every page. Even in that one teaser image of Wolverine, I feel like, there's also a little bit of personality stemming from that too. I almost don't tend to prefer the more animated sensibility of Greg Capullo's line, but I can definitely realize the technical ability and why he's so celebrated across the comic book industry here. Okay, so this is our teaser image of Greg Capullo headed to Wolverine. Once again, I think we have a really strong facial expression, some distorted anatomy that just kind of captures like the majesty of the Wolverine character in general. Capullo previously worked on Marvel titles such as Kazar and X Force in the late 80s and early 90s before moving to his aforementioned time at Image Comics, and more recently at DC, where he forged a long term creative partnership with writer Scott Snyder on Batman. The creators and titles of the new X Men line so far have been kept under tight wraps, with Marvel only teasing that the relaunch will come in July under the watch of editor Tom Brevoort. Brevoort has been part of the Avengers office for years, so the apparent hiring of Capullo on Wolverine may signal that he's looking to make a big splash with some top names creators on the new titles. Of course, the roster of creators also teased Gail Simone. And yeah, we just checked out that free Comic Book Day article, which teased that Gail Simone as well as David Marquez are probably going to have, or at least Gail Simone will probably have some kind of book over in the brand new X-Men line of titles. Yeah, introducing Greg Capullo back to the X-Men universe will hopefully get some eyes on the books. Right now, I feel like some of the reader response to the end of Krakoa is a little bit tepid. I don't know how many readers are still invested in terms of some of these books. So I am really, really excited about the relaunch of the X-Men. I really hope that more people are going to be able to jump on board and check out just how fantastic these books have become over the last couple years as we get into a brand new launching point for the X-Men line of titles. Okay, we have a massive, ginormous news article that's going to touch on all the most important pieces that we need for Fall of the House of X and Rise of the Powers of 10. After this, we have a massive, massive news story that I'm super excited to get into, also pertaining to the X Men. Without further ado, let's go ahead and check this one out. This one coming in from Tim Weber, written January 4th on Marvel.com. Here's everything you need to know for Fall of the House of X and Rise of the Powers of 10, the interconnected series that will bring an end to the X-Men's Krakoan age. 5 years ago, the X-Men changed the world while the Marvel Universe slept. Tired of living in a world that hates and fears the mutants, Professor X introduced Krakoa, an island nation he and his allies built in secret to give mutants a permanent home in tropical paradise. Guided by the prophetic warnings of longtime ally Moira McTaggart, Xavier, Magneto, and the rest of mutant kind attempted to create a sustainable society that could survive threats like the Sentinels and mutant-hating groups like Orcus. The establishment of Krakoa and the secrets of Moira McTaggart's previously unseen lives were revealed throughout two interconnected miniseries, House of X and Powers of 10. House of X and Powers of 10 kicked off the Krakoan era. Let's see, with Fall of the House of X by Jerry Duggan and Lucas Wernick and Rise of the Powers of 10 by Kieran Gillen and Silva will bring this age of mutants to an end. Before the sun sets on the Krakoan era, let's look back at how it all began in House of X and Powers of 10. And we have this really stunning artwork teasing the end of the Krakoan era, illustrated by the excellent Mark Brooks. You know, I really like how this teaser image introduces Professor Xavier and teases all of the ways that he kind of takes on this like Orcus hunting storyline over in the main Immortal X-Men book. Also, I think during Fall of X, we've gotten just great material for Shadowcat across so many of the X-Men books, even extending to that Miss Marvel solo series. Okay, so one of the most important plot threads in terms of Fall of the House of X and Rise of the Powers of 10 is Moira McTaggart's secret lives. As a scientist and close friend to Xavier, Moira McTaggart appeared as one of the X-Men's most trustworthy human allies from her debut in Chris Claremont and Dave Cockrum's Uncanny X-Men 96 through her apparent death. However, House of X revealed Moira was secretly a mutant who had guided Xavier through years thanks to his reincarnation powers, which allowed her to live through multiple timelines. Whenever Moira died, she was subsequently reincarnated as a child with full knowledge of her previous lives. and she believes this process would repeat 10 or 11 times before she died for good. After working individually with Xavier, Magneto, and Apocalypse, McTaggart identified the rise of the machines like the Sentinels and specifically the emergence of the endlessly adaptable Nimrod as the greatest threat to the long term survival of mutants. After witnessing the extinction of mutant kind across her first 9 lives, Moira quietly worked with Xavier and Magneto to establish Krakoa in her 10th and presumably final life. Moira approached Xavier with all this information before he informed the X-Men, and the pair made preparations for Krakoa for years, even arranging her apparent death. Although Moira's dream of Krakoa was largely realized, she turned against mutant kind after the resurrection of her rival, the prophetic mutant Destiny, and planned to depower the world's mutants to spare them from eradication. While the twisted mutant scientist, Mr. Sinister, cloned Moira and used her powers for his own ends, McTaggart became depowered herself. She then transformed her mind into a cyborg body and joined Orchis as one of their leaders. Yeah, there's been a lot that's happened with Moira McTaggart throughout the House of X and Powers of 10 series, and just throughout the Krakoa line in general. I've seen a lot of criticism very recently, over in terms of X-Men fans with how Marvel has treated Moira McTaggart in the post Jonathan Hickman X-Men Krakoa era. And it does feel like there's definitely been less of a focus after Jonathan Hickman left the books stemming from Inferno. However, I think a lot of the material with Moira has still been nothing short of fantastic. I think Moira's appearance at the most recent Hellfire Gala was brutal. It was shocking. It was excellent and wonderful. And frankly, I think people are a little bit too harsh on the X-Men. I think as a whole, the franchise has still done a really good job juggling these really big and bold plot lines and still has something in store for Moira. I think as long as we get one like really big and massive plot development over from Moira and Follow the House of X or Rise of the Powers of 10, I would be more than happy. And also, I would like to see this plot thread continue in the X-Men from the Ashes reboot as well. Krakoa's debut. Of course, Krakoa's debut is going to be important from X-Men from the Ashes. The Resurrection Protocols. Yeah, we know plenty about the Resurrection Protocols. Let's go ahead and read about the emergence of Orchis. Even considering Krakoa's accomplishments, the world still hated and feared mutants. Just as Xavier brought them together on Krakoa, the anti-mutant forces of the world joined forces to form Orchis. Drawing members from organizations like S.H.I.E.L.D., AIM, SWORD, and Hydra, Orchis is the brainchild of Dr. Elia Gregor, who developed an idea to stop mutants from becoming the world's most dominant species. Killian Devo enacted Gregor's plans for Orchis and led the organization on the orders of Omega Sentinel, a former X-Man possessed by her mutant-hating counterpart from an alternate timeline. While Orchis developed plans to attack Krakoa and mutant kind on multiple fronts, mutant-hating Sentinels also played a significant role in the organization's plans. In House of X, a team of X-Men destroyed an orbital Sentinel-making facility called the Orchis Forge, but they were killed during the process. After those mutants were resurrected, Orchis continued its efforts against Krakoa by successfully activating Nimrod, a hyper-adaptive Sentinel that marked a turning point in the war between the humans and mutants in several future timelines. As Orchis grew, mutant-hating scientist Fei Long joined the organization, brought Tony Stark's company, and used Iron Man technology to create Stark Sentinels. Orchis also brought Moira McTaggart and Dr. Stasis, a mutant-hating clone of scientist Nathaniel Essex, into its leadership. After spreading anti-mutant sentiment and tainting the medicine that Krakoa supplied to the rest of the world, Orchis unleashed its full fury at the Hellfire Gala, which left Krakoa in ruins and the world's mutants missing or forced underground. The slow way that Marvel has implemented Orchis over years of storytelling has really caught my interest in terms of the X-Men line. I've heard a couple people criticize the fact that the X-Men are still on the run from Orcus being such a big part of the narrative. Again, I think X-Men is really focused on long-term storytelling, and due to the fact that all these plot threads were introduced in House of X and Powers of 10, I am more than willing to give Marvel the space to wind down this really massive Orcus storyline. I feel like it's created like almost like a post-apocalyptic nature for the X-Men titles, and it's just really reinvigorated the line and has made our characters feel more desperate than ever. The mutants were riding so high the last couple years over on Krakoa that they definitely needed to get checked in terms of the fall of X. Dominions, this is another really, really interesting part of the current Marvel plot threads that are set to wind down here. Let's go ahead and explore the Dominions. In the timelines where machines prevailed over mutant kind, Nimrod and the other AIs made joining a Dominion their ultimate goal. Standing is the ultimate pinnacle of technological evolution. A Dominion is an interstellar intelligence with unlimited power that exists out of the boundaries of time and space. Dominions are sentient beings made up of titans, collections of intelligence dense enough to generate singularities. Though relatively less powerful than agents like the Phalanx, Dominions can absorb or assimilate worlds to increase their intelligence or maintain the energy needed for their operations. As detailed in Powers of 10, the sixth life of Moira McTaggart offers the clearest example of a Dominion in action through the Phalanx. In this timeline, mutants, humans, and machines were replaced by genetically engineered post-humans. These post-humans created a planet-sized AI to reach out to the Phalanx, who they hoped would absorb and assimilate their machine intelligence and make it part of the Dominion's larger collective. I actually totally forgot that the Dominion concept was first introduced and utilized in terms of Powers of 10. It feels even more natural for the Krakoa era to use the Dominions to wind down, just the Krakoa span of books in general. As detailed, I think we just read that. Let's check out the next article. While this process would make these post humans into what they considered a higher plane of existence, the assimilation process would also destroy every living thing on Earth. However, Moira McTaggart was killed before this process could begin in earnest, and her death reset the timeline and wiped out this future in Powers of 10-5 by Hickman and R.B. Silva. More recently, Enigma, a new Dominion, revealed herself in Immortal X-Men 18 by Kieran Gillen and Juan Jose Rip. The Dominion is a creation of Nathaniel Essex, the immortality-obsessed Victoria Aryan scientist who cloned himself to create Mr. Sinister and Dr. Stasis. Hiding in the shadows beyond the Marvel Universe, Enigma is an ultimate threat to mutants and their continued evolution. I am so glad that we got the chance to check out this article. I don't think it was explicitly stated anywhere in Immortal X-Men 18 that the Dominion actually is this character named Enigma. Yeah, frankly, so much to be excited about. So many plot threads culminating just in the background of Marvel's current X-Men line of titles. I told you earlier, before we checked out this article, that we were going to take a look at a really, really interesting news story. We have a cover or a preview over on Rise of the Powers of 10, the second half of the dual miniseries, closing Krakoa out here. Let's go ahead and check this one out right now, coming in from Adventures in Poor Taste. The fight for Krakoa has been lost. 10 years ago, the mutants returned from their exile and reclaimed the Earth from the forces of Orcus. They failed. Now, within the victorious Orcus, with the gauntlet choking the world, Nimrod and Omega Sentinel begin their plan within a plan into action. They are to summon their binary god to consume everything in their accession. All that stands between them is the X-Men. What can they do? They're the X-Men. They'll find a way. That's their power. So begins the story beyond time and space, with the rise of powers beyond our petty human intelligence. From writer Kieran Gillen and artist R.B. Silva comes half of the story that will bring the Krakoan Age to its conclusion. Afro SF. I'm surprised Jonathan Hickman hasn't written a Machine Man comic since he has such an interest in the technological singularity in his X-Men and Avengers books. Once again, fantastic call out. Of course, would love to see Jonathan Hickman tackle the Machine Man concept as well. Man, it looks like this one is a 40 pager coming in from RB Silva, Kieran Gillen, and David Curiel. Let's go ahead and take a look at these beautiful preview pages here. So we're teased that this is 10 years into the future, the Tower of Nimrod the Lesser, the human machine monolith Earth. And we have Nimrod saying in response over to Omega Sentinel, they really thought they could win. I am so taken with the design of the page over from RB Silva. I think the way he introduces the plot threads with Orcus, with these characters standing, very small over in the center of the page is really, really striking. That, tower over in the background of Nimrod the Lesser really brings out the sense of design. I'm also taking a look at the kind of ruins of looks to be some kind of like space design over in the background that just looks really beautiful. And it looks like we have Omega Sentinel saying in response over to, it looks to be Emma Frost. They did where I came from. The mutants burned down the machine firmament with the Phoenix Fire. They destroyed you, Nimrod. It's why they sent me back. It would be a mistake to be too confident. The sinister way that Omega Sentinel and Nimrod are navigating this conversation along the ruins of the X-Men is just absolutely wonderful to behold. Once again, there's a great sense of design from Silva. I love how so much of the panels are just designed and interpreted, and this last one gives way to negative space as opposed to some of these panel borders over in the background. Nimrod said, yes, tomorrow everything changes. Tomorrow we meet our new god. So I think some of the themes within Rise of the Powers of 10 are striking with this really big focus over in terms of AI and just the rise of artificial intelligence in general and the reference of a binary god. Frankly, I think Kieran Gillen is such a talented writer in really giving a bigger platform or a bigger sense of freedom amidst the end of the Krakoan era. Should open up, I think, one of the best quality series in terms of what we're going to get in the X-Men books for quite a long time. In terms of our last page, there's also a couple exciting narrative developments. Also, really love seeing John Ironfire featured on the page, even though he's not looking like he's in, very great condition here. We also have Mystique and Gambit over in conversation towards the page with a reference over to Rogue as well. And it looks like this last panel teases Gambit taking on some Stark Sentinels in terms of Rise of the Powers of 10 too. So I would just say in general here, there's a lot to be excited about for Rise of the Powers of 10. It feels like there's a really strong backdrop. There's a really interesting, sense of theme with the rise of artificial intelligence. RB Silva delivers really great faces and designs. I think Kieran Gillen is really strong at writing dialogue. And once again, just the sinister nature of the conversation between Nimrod and Omega Sentinel is just captured so wonderfully. Well, I am very, very interested in checking out where Rise of the Powers of 10 is going to set the Marvel Universe here in the near future, and just how deep into the future this series is going to go in general. I hope you are just as excited as I am. We still have a few big news items to go ahead and discuss. Next, we are actually going to go ahead and check out what is yet to come in terms of The Amazing Spider-Man. This one is an old storyline. It's an old news article, but it's a really good one here. Marvel teases Spider-Man to suffer the consequences in a gang war event towards the end of the gang war event. So this article is coming in from David Brooke over at Adventures in Poor Taste. And Marvel is really previewing an upcoming issue of Amazing Spider-Man Chapter 45. Marvel Comics has teased nobody is coming out of gang war unscathed including Peter Parker. In a new teaser, Marvel reveals the cover to Amazing Spider Man 45, which comes out on March 13th, art by John Romita Jr. All right, here is our cover on issue 45 of the upcoming series. Teasing that nobody is going to survive the gang war kind of unscathed here. And also, I think one of the most exciting aspects about Amazing Spider Man 45 is it's actually set to feature art over from Carmen Carnero. Carmen Carnero has recently delivered amazing work on the core Captain America series. I feel like she is going to bring such an interesting perspective and design to Spider Man. Sometimes I feel like the artwork in Spider Man is a little bit too obtuse with John Romita Jr. not capturing like all the subtext or narrative nuance in terms of Zeb Wells' script. And I think that Carmen Carnero is going to be a perfect artist to get so much detail out of Amazing Spider Man. I really hope that Carnero is able to join like the roster of artists in terms of Spider-Man, and then also we're gonna get to see her illustrating a lot of future upcoming issues. I do think her artwork clashes a little bit with John Romita Jr., but I don't know how really concerned I am in terms of that over in the long run. Also, I just wanted to say, over in terms of Marvel's core Gang War series, we've covered this extensively on the channel here, but I think just in terms of what Zeb Wells and John Romita Jr. are doing each and every month, it's been a blast to check out that book. The way that I think Zeb Wells has utilized these different generations of Fisk characters with Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, and the Rose attacking Janice Lincoln and Spider Man has been really interesting. Also, the way that we keep seeing Janice Lincoln resurface in different contexts throughout Amazing Spider Man, along with characters like Randy, are amazing. I also love in each and every issue how you can track which kind of crime lord is taking over, which area over in New York City. It's interesting to kind of track how the territories are divided and who's still kind of remaining over the territory as each issue continues. Frankly, I don't think that fan response has been that solid over for the Gang War, but so much of Zebwell's run has really been devoted to setting up some of these ideas, with Tombstone featured really prominently in the first couple main issues of the series. All right, well, I think that's going to do it here for our discussion of the core Amazing Spider Man series. Frankly, I think this book is still on great track here. I'm interested, but also alarmed at that tease of the Free Comic Book Day story where they introduced the idea that Norman Osborn may be headed back into a villainous turn in terms of the Green Goblin. Say it ain't so. I hope it's not true, but I think we're just going to have to stick around and see how the Amazing Spider Man develops here. All right, I'm going to go ahead and take a quick break. I'll be back in just a moment. All right, thank you so much for sticking with me here. Let's go ahead and head into our next news article here. This one really exciting. It's actually a preview for an upcoming comic book that we're going to talk about and discuss on the channel this next week. This is the latest issue of Batman and Robin coming in from DC Comics. I have been really anticipating future issues of this series over from Joshua Williamson. The usual artist over on Batman and Robin is Simone DeMeo. It looks like this time for Batman and Robin 5, artist Nicholas Sismessaja is coming in to deliver some great work alongside Rex Lucas. And this issue is also interesting because in the last chapters of Batman and Robin, we were teased by the introduction of these animal themed villains that Damian and Bruce have continued to fight throughout their tenure as crime fighters here. And in the last couple issues, it was revealed that Man-Bat was actually the leader of some of these animal themed characters. Also, there's a brand new version of an existing Batman antagonist known as Shush. It's basically a female version of the character of Hush, now known as Shush. And to make matters even more interesting here, Damian and Bruce even have reason to believe that the principal stone at Damian's Gotham High School may actually be this character known as Shush over in the first place. So let's go ahead and check out this preview over for Batman and Robin, really showing Bruce and Damian trying to go undercover to figure out if this principal stone character is actually Shush in the first place. Plus, we can check out just some great artwork over from Sismessaja as well. And I do want to read the preview or the solicit over for this issue, but I was just unable to find an actual working solicit over for Batman and Robin 5. This one is coming in from Adventures in Poor Taste, though. So here's some of our preview pages. I really like how this issue opens, teasing the fact that Bruce Wayne Batman is actually going to reveal himself over on the next page, and also teasing the location of the Gotham City High School here. There's some revelations about a pancake breakfast and the soccer team featured, and we have just a group of women kind of staring at each other, commenting and like ogling in response to a beautiful man. On the next page, we're introduced to a very tired, a very disheveled Bruce Wayne, just seemingly volunteering at Damian's school to get a little bit more research and intelligence over on the Stone character. Also really interesting to see like how disheveled and kind of tired Bruce looks over in this first panel, and just that sense of design that Sismessaja is able to render towards this second page in the panel is also just really beautiful. Love the overhead shot kind of establishing the gorgeous view of the Gotham High School. Really like how Damian appears on this next page. It feels to me like Nicholas Sismessaja is able to render him with like a trepidatious look over on his face. Damian is a little bit perturbed at the fact that Bruce is kind of intruding over on his space within the issue. Getting to see Damian's reaction shots, I think, are really funny here. So Bruce says over to Damian, "We talked about this last night." And then we get a flashback over to Bruce and Damian apprehending Orca under the sea. This series also has a really cool name for the individual issue called School Days. So yeah, really interesting stuff over in Batman and Robin. I like how the book has kind of utilized this school setting to explore some of the superhero natures of Bruce and Damian. I think the plotting in this book has been really phenomenal. Great characterization too. Within each issue of Batman and Robin, I feel like closer to Bruce and Damian as just individual characters, as opposed to just maskless crime fighters. I'm also really struck at how long that Joshua Williamson has been writing the Robin character, specifically over at DC Comics. I was such a massive fan of Williamson and Gleb Melnikov's core Robin series. Getting to see the references to that comic book, in this core series with Damian drawing and, just really focused on like fantasy elements is really beautiful and interesting to behold here. Yeah, I love Batman and Robin. We'll have a video review of issue 5 coming in this upcoming Wednesday. I don't think we talked about this, but we probably should have, so we're going to do it now. DC just announced a really, really cool Suicide Squad series. Suicide Squad Dream Team recruits Harley Quinn, Bizarro, and Dreamer into a new version of Task Force X. One of the coolest aspects about this Suicide Squad series is the creative team. Nicole Maines has continued to introduce fantastic work stemming out of Lazarus Planet. Eddie Barrows, such a strong artist. I also like Iber Ferreira. Seeing Dreamer join the Suicide Squad, to me, that's actually interesting. Let's check out this brand new era of Suicide Squad. One of the major plot threads that's been ticking away in the background of DC superhero books for the last few months has been Amanda Waller's increasing ambition and plans to manipulate the metahumans of the DC universe. This is really true. I think starting in Dawn of DC, we've gotten more and more and more appearances from Amanda Waller across so many books that are like key to DC's core line. I'm wondering if this new era of the Suicide Squad is going to be like a cap or like a decisive turning point in that storyline. It seems like these themes will take a big leap forward in March with the launch of Suicide Squad Dream Team, a new ongoing series centered around a new iteration of Task Force X, led by none other than Dreamer. The book is written by Nicole Maines, who recently contributed to the Titans Beast World Tour Metropolis #1 one-shot, and drawn by artists Eddie Barrows and Iber Ferreira. I'm really excited to be working with Eddie and Eber to bring Dreamer into this pivotal time in the DC universe, said Maines of the series. This is a very different space from what she's used to and to what we're used to seeing her. Dealing with Amanda Waller and this new Suicide Squad is going to force her to decide what kind of hero she wants to be and what she is willing to sacrifice to save the future. We got a selection of gorgeous character designs by Eddie Barrows in the gallery below, including stunning portraits of Amanda Waller and Harley Quinn. Eddie Barrows so good at like that cross-hatching and all the shading on his figures, as well as having just like a big and bold facial reaction. Very beautiful, design for Amanda Waller. Also, very interesting to see the interpretation of Harley Quinn designed here. Once again, tons of shading here. It feels like this is an interpretation of Harley Quinn 2 that's pretty similar to what we've seen over in the films and in recent DC comics. Clock King. Wow. What a cool design. What a creepy way to just illustrate a figure, with really no sinister elements except for a smile and with the hands of a clock reflecting over on the glasses. Very, very excited about Suicide Squad Dream Team, even before checking out the first issue here. Yeah, cool design for Dreamer. I think the jacket is new, reflecting her affiliation with the Suicide Squad. I think it's pretty cool to see her take on a new costume along with her new outlook and status quo here too. Bizarro, always good to see Bizarro again. Really great shading in terms of what Eddie Barrows is bringing here, especially with Bizarro's face just looking so dark and kind of sinister and kooky all at the same time. Lots of emotions conflicting on just this one, design piece alone here. Really beautiful stuff. The characters making up this new Suicide Squad are a fun mix of well-known favorites and lesser-known characters. Harley Quinn is a given, but the inclusion of Bizarro is a fun twist, and they'll be backed up by Clock King, Black Alice, and Deadeye. You can check out the covers for #1 in the gallery below. The main cover by Barrows and Ferreira will also be available as a foil variant, and there are additional covers by Riccardo Federici, Sweeney Boo, and Gleb Melnikov. Cool stuff here. It looks like this is the cover coming in from Eddie Barrows. This one also just has a really cool montage aesthetic with Dreamer like running right in the foreground here. Black Alice, really cool character that DC has put a lot of emphasis on lately. It's good to see DC following up with her in this book. Also, I think we've seen Deadeye show up like again and again and again in terms of like Lazarus Planet, as well as Dawn of DC stories. So I think it's cool that Deadeye is showing back up over in this story, very close, working alongside Amanda Waller too. Wow, check out the Riccardo Federici cover for this series. This is so cool. I think it really shows that Dreamer is kind of the protagonist of this comic book with all the characters looming just in the background. It's really amazing just looking at this artwork because it looks like a movie poster. It looks like something that's real, but it's only really a comic book itself. Man, I'm always just really taken at just beholding the beautiful artwork from Federici. Really great stuff. I'm wondering if this is the Sweeney Boo cover, also really cool in placing a heavy emphasis on Dreamer. I'm glad that DC found like a context to utilize Dreamer that's actually interesting too. It looks like this one coming in from Gleb Melnikov. Definitely giving me some like inspiration or echoes of that Robin series that we were just talking about a few moments ago. I really like how Gleb Melnikov is able to design some of the figures on the page. And I think this page or this cover in particular also carries like an element of tragedy that'll probably be reflected in terms of the main series as well. Okay, so it looks like Suicide Squad Dream Team is just a couple months away here. This one is set to be published on March 12th. Lot to look forward to between the interesting roster of characters and the interesting creative team on this one. I will definitely have more coverage of Suicide Squad Dream Team as this book starts to develop here. Okay, we're going to go ahead and close out our stream today with, I think, just a super cool article. This one was published actually just a couple days ago on December 25th. This is going to be our introduction to X-Men Monday. Over from Adventures in Poor Taste from Chris Hassan, Jordan D. White reflects on 2023 and teases 2024. What do you get, X-Men fans who already have 60 years of continuity? You give them a giant-size edition of their favorite weekly X-Men interview column, featuring not just our annual end-of-year conversation with X-Men senior editor Jordan D. White, but a special guest as well. Let's go ahead and check out. Okay, I see how they have this set up here. So let's go ahead and start by talking about X-Men. It looks like this was the fan favorite ongoing series of 2023, according to Adventures in Poor Taste readers. And we have commentary coming in directly from Jerry Duggan. Let's see what he has to say about his work on just the fantastic X-Men comic book series this past year. I'm truly privileged to be collaborating with so many wonderfully talented books on my favorite comic book ever. Truly a dream gig. There are a lot of killer X books out there at the moment. I'm very gratified at this result. Hope you enjoy the comics that we have coming your way in the next few months. We're working very hard on them. On behalf of all our freelancers and bullpen around the world, we thank you so much. Buckle up for the end. Okay, so if you ask me what the best X-Men ongoing series is in 2023, I think X-Men just has been really, really wonderful. I think X-Men Red has also been tremendous. But for me, I think the sinister nature and the way that Kieran Gillen is able to construct some of the plot and dialogue in terms of Immortal X-Men would definitely have that book win out. While I do love Immortal X-Men, I think the main X-Men series continues to impress me with how Jerry Duggan is able to like reintroduce like different types of plot threads than I would expect him to introduce otherwise. So I'd probably say this would be my number 2 and X-Men Red would be my number 3, but I love all these books and I don't want you to make me choose between one. Favorite X-Men series of 2023. It looks like the readers like the Jean Grey book. And we also have a reference over from Louise Simonson talking about the Jean Grey series. I was a little trepidatious about possible reader reaction to the Jean Grey miniseries, a character study in which Jean, one of my absolute favorite mutants, is dead, trapped in the white hot room, hallucinating, convinced that the disaster that has befallen mutant kind is her fault and that she must have something to fix it. I'm delighted so many X-Men fans gave Jean Grey a chance, and I'm especially thrilled that they chose it as this year's favorite X-Men miniseries. X-Readers are so knowledgeable about these stories and so passionate about the characters, and it's particularly meaningful that they appreciate the story Bernard Chang and I told. So Bernard Chang says, as an avid collector of comics during my teenage years in the 80s, with the X-Men titles being on the top of my pull list, the Jean Grey miniseries was a dream come true. The gift was already the opportunity to collaborate with one of the industry's legends, Louise Simonson, colorist, Marcelo Maiolo, along with the rest of the creative and editorial team at Marvel. I'm always appreciative when our passion in the story and craft resonates with the readers. Thank you and Jayu. All right, you're going to ask me what my favorite X-Men miniseries is this year. I think it'd probably have to be Dark X-Men, but I also liked Uncanny Spider-Man 2. I want to be totally honest, the Jean Grey book never quite got off on the right foot with me. I think the way that it introduced like all these previous plot threads seemed to have like bigger implications than the book actually did. I wish the Jean Grey book was just a little bit more like linear and a little bit more focused in terms of its overall scope. It was really frustrating for me to read like any individual piece of that series, and I also think that the way the Jean Grey book was tied into Immortal X-Men almost made it so that it felt like, for me, the Jean Grey book was a little bit redundant. I expected to like this book a lot more than I actually did, weirdly enough. Exterminators. I did not like Exterminators at all. Children of the Vault. Yeah, that's a good book. We like Children of the Vault here. Favorite X-Men character of 2023? You're asking me? Man, I'd say probably like Mystique, Nightcrawler. Who else do we have? I feel like Polaris is getting interesting. Firestar had some great material too. I see we have Jean Grey as our number one. I probably wouldn't pick Jean Grey as the number one for this year particularly. I definitely would rather give it to either Storm or Emma Frost. I feel like both those characters had like bigger years, especially with Storm kind of like rising up and like smiting down Genesis over in the core series. Emma Frost has really been having a fun time over in terms of the main Iron Man series too. JFW, every time I whistle, I feel like Bishop now. Very funny comment there. Jerry Duggan, I knew it was a mistake to kill Jean, but what a death, right? Every X-Men writer's dream is to give Jean a good death. We swung for the fences. R.I.P. Jeannie. We'll never see you again. Jean was so much fun to write. What a gift. Really funny seeing some of the responses from Jerry Duggan as well. Breakout character of 2023. The winners are Mother Righteous, Madeline Pryor, and John Ironfire. For once, I am in agreement with this X-Men list. Thank God. Thank God. Yeah, I think Mother Righteous has just been the best character out of all the X-Men comics this past year. I'm always excited to see what kind of a fresh trouble she's getting into. Whether it be like in the context of like Sins of Sinister or the end of Fall of X, this is a character that has just led the X-Men towards really, really interesting story ideas. Nice. And we get Cy Spurrier and Jonathan Hickman commenting on this. I think these are writers who are really closely affiliated with Righteous. Let's see what they have to say. Cy Spurrier, there's a personality type I've always found particularly poisonous. It's a person who might come across on the surface as perfectly charming. They're interested. They ask questions. They don't appear to be egotists or narcissists in the standard pattern. They might even seem unfathomably generous. It's just that whatever interaction you have with these people, however much of yourself you pour into the relationship, somehow they will always be the center of the story. Only their feelings matter. You can feel loved by them, supported by them, and hence never quite stop to realize that the emotional spotlight has never once been pointing at you. Really fun stuff from Cy Spurrier, teasing the fact that
His writing introduction to Mother Righteous definitely appears to be a little bit more personal to him in how he writes some of his scripts. Maybe that's why the scripts translate like so well over on the written page and make Mother Righteous such a unique and interesting villain for the X-Men. That's Mother Righteous. You might think she's a supporting character in your story, but the moment you thank her, the moment you acknowledge that you shouldn't be where you are if not for her help, suddenly she's the starring role and you don't even get credit. As she herself put it, I am the worm that eats your heart. All right, let's see what Karen Gillan has to say. I just loved seeing her come together. Cited great work in conceptualizing and defining this abusive void of a parasite. And then Jamie McKelvey came along to give another instant classic Jamie McKelvey design. The negative space heart is some next level stuff. We agree here. We agree with everything you're saying. Preach, preach. Superhero comics are always in need of great villains, so I was delighted to see her hit so hard and delighted to get a chance to play with her. Yeah, great, great material from Mother Righteous this year across the X-Men comics. Favorite X couple? Oh, come on. Come on. Jean Grey and Cyclops were not the marquee X-Men couple this year. It was Destiny and Mystique, Emma Frost and Tony Stark entirely. These are characters that had such big developments in their relationships this year. And, especially Destiny and Mystique have really been defined by tragedy and their recontextualization in the X-Men comics. Emma got the message so hard she actually went and married an Avenger. Scott and Jean deserve this recognition by the fans. We gave them good times and bad times and then worse times, but that's our job to send doom and sometimes doom. Thanks, X-Men fans. We appreciate you. Wow, what an article here. So, in addition to that, like X-Men fan poll that they ran, they also have like a complete interview over with Jordan D. White. All right, we're going to start here because I think this is a more interesting place to kick off. Wow, these tiki mugs featuring the X-Men characters are so cool. I wish I had one of these. Particularly the Apocalypse and Professor Xavier one are so cool. You've been teasing your work on the Venom and Hulk books on social media, but since there's been no official announcement, it's nice to have that confirmation for all those wondering what's next for you. Now, something I still see X fans talking about to this day is what happened between the end of the Uncanny X-Men Disassembled era and House of X-1. Jonathan and Hickman made it clear on Monday the X Office wouldn't be going back to filling those blanks. So my question is, since the final Krakoan stories are being wrapped up, can we expect the end of the Krakoan age to tee up what comes next on the page? Jordan says, well, I don't feel like it's my place to talk about that. I feel like how much we want to say about that stuff sounds like a decision for Tom Brevoort to make. There's some stuff coming out that will tee it up, but again, I just don't want to say too much. We are working together. We are not in any way in opposition to each other. We're working together to make sure everything works. Leonard McFarlane, sorry, X-Men Red is the best book. I'm not even going to fight with you on that. X-Men Red is tremendous. All these books are tremendous. X-Men, Immortal X-Men, X-Men Red. All these books this past year, for me, have all been, I think, some of the best books in terms of Marvel's publishing line. And that was going to be mine. And also, I did want to say in response to Jordan D. White on the main series, it's frustrating to get interview responses like this. The interviewer is asking something that, is really important. How much of Krakoa is tied to the next iteration of X-Men? I feel like there should be some like teed up response or some way that Jordan D. White can be a little bit less cautious and just answer the question. I feel like Tom Brevoort has already said in some of his response to X-Men books that Krakoa is going to be pretty tied into, the future of X-Men with some of those plot threads. That was my next question. How much visibility do you have into what Tom Brevoort's doing? Jordan says tons. I'm removed from it. Here, let me write this again. Tons. I'm removed from it and that it's not my book, but I'm aware of what they're doing. We are doing everything in our power to definitely not get in the way of that. And they're doing everything in their power to not get in the way of what we want to do and make them work together seamlessly. But I want to go back to what you were saying. People are still talking about what happened between Disassembled and now. Like, first of all, we got lots of flashbacks in House of X of them prepping stuff. What more do you need? You want more pages of you want more pages of comics of people going, so we're moving to an island? Yep, an island. Where are we going to live? In plant houses. Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I think I'm ready to wrap up the Krakoan era at this stage with these final, rounds of books here. I saw a tweet recently that mentioned the gap between eras. I think there are fans who do want to see Cyclops inviting Wolverine to live on the moon with him and his family and so on. This is a weirdly contentious conversation that we're reading between Adventures in Poor Taste and Jordan White. Honestly, that's great. This is the best opportunity for fan fiction. Man, Jordan White is just shutting him down really, really hard right now. Listen, I'll never say never because my hope is that somewhere down the line, when a generation of creators who love this era and fell in love with this era come to comics and want to revisit it, who knows? Maybe at that point they'll go, here's the Krakoa 1 miniseries. We give you more in depth on how everybody is prepping for the big move. Generally speaking, there is a window there, I'm not going to lie, but there's a window given where we left everybody. But pretty much all the big stories were wrapped up, and I don't know, it never seemed like that big of a leap to me. It's mostly shoe leather. I think that's fair. I think that's fair. In 30 years, in X-Men Legends Volume 30, Jonathan Hickman will return to tell us how the summer house came to be. Well, sure, except that he'll reveal something that will turn it all on its head and make you want to reread the entire series all over again because it changed everything. Jonathan mined the X-Men's continuity for things that would define the Krakoan era, so you're right. In 30 years, a new writer could say that something happened between Disassembled and House of X1, and it created the new villain of the era. Before we move on, it's good to hear that you and Tom are working together as you transition between eras, Jordan White says. They've got a great crew working on it. I've just read the first issue that's going to be coming out, not the whole thing, just the script, and I have another script for another series that I'm planning to read. I just haven't gotten it around to it, even though I know the plans. Okay, so X-Fans' favorite series of 2023. I mean, listen, that makes a lot of sense. X-Men is the main book of the line. Immortal X-Men is a huge deal, but it's the politics book rather than the superhero book. And at the end of the day, the X-Men's roots are in superheroics, not politics. So it makes sense to me that the X-Men would win. Interesting, that was Jordan D. White on commenting on how fans tend to prefer Immortal X-Men over the main book. And it's interesting to hear his reasoning in saying that the kind of political implications are not the best sellers in terms of the core X-Men line. Still, I think all these books are tremendous. I'm happy regarding whichever one wins in terms of the Krakoan era. Oh, cool. We have some commentary from Jordan D. White on X-Men Red 2. He says, it's an amazing book I love every single thing about, but also not a traditional superhero book. A lot of world building and almost fantasy. I mean, it's definitely a little sci-fi because it's on another planet, but also a fantasy novel. Again, all three of those are amazing books. All right, let's see if we have anything else really big in terms of this news article. You know what? What we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to return to this article tomorrow. It looks like there's still a lot of news to cover. And there's been some great commentary that we've already read over from Jordan D. White. Yeah, I definitely want to hear Jordan react to X-Men Blue, X-Men Forever, and some of the other implications of the core book. Okay, well, I think for today, that's going to go ahead and wrap up our stream. Thank you so much for coming aboard the stream today and really sticking with me here. I had an absolute blast. I hope you did too. Tomorrow, let's see what we're going to go ahead and talk about. We're going to preview the next issue of Thunderbolts, issue 2. God, the preview for that is so cool. We're going to check out the end of this article. I think also tomorrow on the stream, we're going to take a look at some of the best news articles or some of the best comic book lists of 2023. And we're going to kind of compare and take a look if any of my personal taste matches up with what these comic book news websites report. What else are we going to do? We're going to talk about the new Iron Man armor that was announced. It looks like we have some commentary over on Jed McKay for Blood Hunt. Maybe I can find something about Blood Hunt that I would actually be interested in. We also have some commentary on the industry from Joshua Williamson that we'll be looking at. And yeah, so it seems like we still have enough news stories to have like a full stream tomorrow, maybe about an hour to an hour and a half. Thank you once again for coming aboard to check out our stream. We'll be back tomorrow, probably around 10 a.m. For more content here. And yeah, just very happy to be back. We're going to be in full swing for the new year, covering all the main X-Men books and talking about every little news announcement Marvel has in store. Thank you so much for coming to check out our stream. And we'll be back in the very near future to talk X-Men and everything Marvel and DC Comics.